Hey man, good question.
Yo, what's up?
I saw that. I think I saw a Zoom thing. Do you guys?
Yeah, we record it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do we access that? Through Discord?
Yeah, through the Discord, we have a repository. If
Okay.
you want, I'll show it in the first couple seconds.
Awesome.
And then, yeah. Guys. Just sit anywhere. All right, I'll get started in a second. Just gonna let people like fill in the room. Hey. Okay, yeah. What's up, guys? What's up? Oh my God. Hey. Hello, hello. What, bro? What? Yesterday?
Yeah.
It went pretty good. Did you interview?
Did you get second round?
That was my second round.
Oh, nice.
Did you get second round?
Yeah.
When? Today?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Did they say anything?
watch?
No.
Bro, they haven't said anything to me or to Zach.
Yeah,
Like,
I
we
know.
haven't heard back yet.
But Zach said no one said it takes him a second to
Yeah,
get
that's
to you after the.
so it should be like by the end of the week. That's what he told me as well.
Okay. I don't know. I'm a little iffy on it.
Bro,
It's like,
same because
Is
I
it
had like
interesting?
I got like the Candy Crush
I
one.
got people.
Tell me what you're
Okay.
confused
So,
about.
like,
They at like well, actually, honestly, we can just talk about it.
How'd it go? Hooked? What?
Are you locked in? You locked in?
Nah, he got.
It was fine.
They gave him they gave him that 300 back truck ball.
Wait, who? Wait, what happened?
He got fucked.
By who?
I don't know.
Oh, that's the GOAT.
Yeah, he's the goat.
GOAT.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to work for Ahmed. Like, I might be a little biased. I might be a little biased.
No.
He's a Ahmed.
Yo, he's a GOAT. Don't even play.
I wish I took him.
I
I'm
got
at
like
the
80 flat in the class right now, so
Bro,
honestly,
that's-
just keep it up.
I mean, I used to be a CA, not anymore. Like, we're like,
Which one?
bro, because I got a real job.
Which ones are you going over?
What?
Like Leetcode.
I mean, I'm just gonna go over like one, honestly, like two graph questions.
That's solid.
Yeah.
Two. Like, I'm gonna do they're both graph questions. I'm gonna solve one. Like,
Have him solve the other.
anyways, solid turnout. Wait, can you get a picture?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Like candid or like what? All right. Welcome. Today, this is the Hello World Intro to Leetcode workshop. Thank you for coming. So if I look at the screen, it's because my Mac doesn't have a screen. So I kind of have to like look at the projector. But anyways, so before we get started, who here has had an internship before? Right. We got a meta intern over here and Discord. Anyways, so who has never had a technical interview? You can raise your hand, right? So you've never had a technical interview, and that's exactly why you're here, right? Like this is guided towards you people, right? So I know we have like some pretty cracked people in the room, but like don't worry, this is meant for you guys. So this is like your technical interview. I don't know. I just get to talk for like an hour. So anyways, oh, here's a little overview of today. So I'm gonna kind of go over like the general methodology of how you want to approach a technical interview. I'm gonna go over like some common data structures and algorithms. Like everybody's taken CS1, right? No? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Like that's totally okay. That's okay. Anyways, then we're gonna go over Leetcode, Shameless Self Plug by Dylan. I'm gonna go over some examples, and then I'll actually like do 2 Leetcode questions. And then I'm just gonna talk about like technical interviews, at least my experience. If anyone else, I mean, like if you know, Caleb, you want to talk about your experience as well. And then just like some general resources that I recommend. Yeah. So I mean, like just getting straight into it. So here's like how I approach these things, right? So I try to like abide by these 2, I guess, ideas. The first one being you want to be a learner before you become a master, right? Because you can see online, all these people are like cracked. Like you'll go on LinkedIn and you'll be like, oh my God, like this person has like 1,500 solved Leetcode questions. Like they're cracked. Like how can I get to this point? But then that's where a lot of people stop thinking and they just start worrying, right? So like you kind of want to think, you want to remember that everybody has to learn at some point. So before you can master something, you obviously have to learn it. And you kind of, there's no like right or wrong way to learn something, but you just have to do it, right? And then that kind of ties into the second one, progress before perfection. You're never going to get that Leetcode question the first try, right? Like I might be the only one, I might be stupid, but it's like I remember when I first started doing Leetcode, I would just like walk, like not even walk. What am I saying? Like I'd go on Leetcode, I'd go to a question and be like, yo, how the fuck do I solve this? Like I have I have no idea. So it's like, don't feel bad about cheating, I guess. Like look at the solution. Like look at the solution if you genuinely don't understand it. And that's actually a really good way to learn. So the main method, if you want to get like official of it, it's called umpire. So it's understand, match, plan, implement, review, and then evaluate. So this is how you want to approach a problem. And honestly, like this doesn't have to be just for technical interviews. It could just be for like anything technical, really, a project, homework, I don't know. And then kind of like the main takeaway is you want to recognize patterns. And then the last part is you just want to read. Like if you just look at something, copy it, paste it, it's like that's some bullshit. Like that's not going to work, right? So you want to actually read the solution and try to have a fundamental understanding of what's going on. Like, why are we making these conscious choices when we're developing a solution? That seems like a whole lot of like yap, but it's like genuinely just read. Like read. And then it'll start to make sense, right? So like, I don't know, has anyone ever made like this, you guys are CS majors, right? Like you guys have made a project before, right? So it's like when you make that first project, it's gonna be hard. Like you're not gonna know what the fuck you're doing. And so it's like, oh, like how do people do this all the time? But it's like once you like keep building, the next one's gonna be easier. The next one's gonna be easier. So the more you build, the more you read, the more you code, it's just gonna come to you, right? So again, progress before perfection and learners before masters. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Anyways, so there's a lot on the screen, but in my experience, these are the most common things you're going to see in terms of data structures, right? So if you take, I don't know, you take CS1, well, you're going to take CS1 if you haven't. And if you've taken CS2, you know, you're going to learn about a lot of things. You're going to learn, you know, graphs, AVL trees, hash maps. I have never, ever in my life seen an AVL question, but that doesn't mean it's not important to know, right? Because again, it's that learners before masters. You might not use it specifically, but you'll have like a fundamental understanding of why we do certain things in computer science, or I guess software engineering. I don't know. I sound like a nerd. Anyways, so these are my most common In my experience, the most common data structures we see. So, you have an array and a string. Arrays and strings, linked lists, like honestly, so many things are just linked lists in different ways. Trees and graphs. I feel like the trend recently in terms of like technical interviews has been so hard on graphs. And like, I don't know why, and it's low-key annoying as fuck, but it's like everything seems to be a graph question nowadays. I don't know. Who feel like you guys feel that way the same, right? Like for some reason, every single question is a graph question. It's like even more than dynamic programming, in my experience. And then hash tables, like hash tables, hash maps, whatever you want to call them. And then stacks and queues. Stacks and queues are also very important for your graph algorithms that we'll get into the next slide. And then, you want to know your common algorithms, right? When you see a problem, what can I apply here, right? So merge sort, quick sort, whatever. You just want to have like a fundamental understanding again. Searching. Searching is kind of like a convoluted topic because most of the times you're not really searching for a specific thing, but it's like when you're doing a problem, you can kind of take that idea of what am I looking for, and then how can I change it to apply it to the specific problem. And then graph algorithms. Honestly, like if I have to say the one thing you should know is how to do DFS and how to do BFS, like that depth first search and that breadth first search is low-key the most overpowered thing to know, because 99.9 times out of 100, like if you get a graph question and you have like a super solid understanding of DFS and BFS and you can modify it to apply it to the current problem, like you'll pass that technical interview with flying colors. You know what I mean? And then DP, probably the more annoying, because you kind of like, you low-key have to put a lot of thought into it and it can get pretty complicated. But it's if you have a good understanding of DP and you can demonstrate that progress inside of a technical interview, then like you'll have a pretty solid chance at, landing that next interview or that offer or whatever. And then, so that includes like memoization, tabulation, and then, your common patterns that you can identify. Yeah. So here's some examples. So has everybody heard of twosome? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Twosome is like the Leetcode #1 question. So that's like your traditional array manipulation, but in reality, there's many different ways of solving it. You can do like string manipulation, array manipulation, you can use a hash map and stuff like that. Sliding window is also a very common theme. So anytime you see something that it's like, find the longest contiguous subsequence of characters or like minimum unrepeated whatever, like that's most of the time going to be a sliding window question. So I'll stop here and then kind of talk about it. So when you get into an interview, you want to think about that, like that umpire method. So first off, you want to understand what's going on. Then you want to match it to a problem. So it's like when they start describing it, I'll get into that in the next slide. That's where you can kind of be like, okay, where am I going to start? And you don't have to always start on the right, the right place. If you start working and you realize, oh, maybe this isn't the most like optimal way to do it, you can kind of just be like, wait, there's probably a more efficient way. But as long as you can communicate that to whoever is interviewing you, you'll be fine. String problems. So, palindrome checks. There's a lot of that in CS1, pretty annoying. Your tree traversals, pathfinding, and cycle detection. That's like that's what sets you apart from the rest. If you can do this consistently and efficiently and, you're competent, like that's what you see. And then common patterns. So, a 2-pointer approach, fast, slow pointers, binary search variations and stuff like that. So mastering the technical interview. So like, this is where like people would be like, oh, blah, 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 like, no shade to the other clubs, but anytime you go to like mastering an interview, they're going to be like, oh, like your elevator pitch, like, hey, like my name is blah, 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 blah. Like I do blah, 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 blah. But that, that's like standard stuff, but none of these workshops like really explain what you're supposed to do. Like you're just introducing yourself. You kind of you do have to show that like technical mastery of the topic, right? So the STAR method, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, I don't know, you can do it if you want, and it has some success, but that's different from having like a fundamental understanding of like what you need to do to achieve the goals you want to achieve. So moving on, you know, like, you guys ever see the meme where it's like hash map, like you just throw a hash map at it and it'll get fixed. So anyways, so for purposes of technical interviews, I have the very stubborn opinion that you should use Python. I have friends that don't agree with me, and I think they're crazy because I'm like, why are you doing Python? I mean, why are you doing Leetcode in C++ or Java or C? I'm like, you're fucking crazy. Because I'm not going to get too much into it, but it's like other languages just have so much verbosity that's not required. And I'll just get into a little bit. I think that Python is the best choice, in my opinion, for doing these technical interviews, because when you're being interviewed by somebody, let's say Yusuf, you're interviewing me, right?
Yeah.
When you ask me a question and I want to answer it, it's not just about getting the right answer. It's about communicating your thought process to the interviewer, because they're not like, you could just be like one of a million people that are going to solve this problem one way or another, but that doesn't indicate that you're a good engineer, right? I could solve this. Like, if he gives me a problem and I just solve it without saying anything, what does that show me? It doesn't show him anything except that I can just solve a problem, right? But in reality, software engineering isn't just working by yourself. A lot of people forget that you have to be, I guess, like a normal person, right? Because you're not just working by yourself on a product, right? You're working with other teams that are not necessarily technical. And you're working with your team, like you're working with other engineers, right? So the main thing in a technical interview is you want to communicate what you're doing to that interviewer, right? And if you get into like the thing about using C or Java, you kind of might lose, you know, that pathway of communication, because you're so focused on the problem instead of, I mean, you're so focused on like how to solve the problem in that language. Python just makes it easier for you to not, you know, I feel like I'm just going on, but it's like Python just makes it simpler. Like, it's a simple language, right? It literally looks like English. I mean, it basically is English. I mean, anyways, so just use Python. I feel like it's the best way. It's just simple. So it'll just make it easy for the interviewer. So this is the boring part. So like, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, before the interview, you know, research the company, you know, review the common questions. So like, if you guys have Leetcode Premium, like that shit's like $160. Like, that's expensive as fuck. But I mean, like, Leetcode tagged, there's like a bunch of like I don't know why, but all the websites, they're in Mandarin, but they, for some reason, have like all the tagged questions for a company. So if you can understand Mandarin, you can go on those websites instead of paying $160 for Leetcode Premium. But it does help, because I've been in interviews where I go to the tag questions on Leetcode Premium. Yes, I pay it. Anyways, and like, I would say it's a pretty reliable source. Like, if you can sort like within the last 30 days, you can see these common questions. And if you just study maybe like 5 or 10, chances are you're going to get one of those questions. And so one thing I do want to mention beforehand, the best thing that can happen to you is you go into a technical interview and they ask you a question that you've seen before. The one thing you don't want to do is be like, oh, I've seen this question before. I promise you they do not give a fuck, and we'll give you another question. So for your best interests, pretend you've never seen this question before and just solve it. Don't let them know you've seen it, right? Because now you have the advantage. They don't, right? Because you've seen this question before and they don't know that. And they don't have to know, right? They ask you the question. They don't have to know that you've done it already. So that'll give you a little, you know, take off the pressure, let you solve the problem, but don't be like, oh, I already seen this, you know? Kind of want to like sell the fact that you don't know it. And then you want to ask questions. Obviously, like, it's when you go to a technical interview, it's not just them asking you questions. You know, you're not just going to be like, oh, hey, like, here's like the technical, you know, solve this for me and then have a good day, right? Usually they're going to be like, oh, like, what do you like about this company? Or why do you want to join our company, right? so you do want to, and they are keeping track of it, right? Like you do want to demonstrate interest within the company because you don't just want to be like, some other person, right? And then during the interview, this is the most important part, right? You kind of want to like think out loud, right? Just literally just talk about what you're doing because they can see I don't know if you're doing on like, I've had interviews where you write on paper or you do a hacker rank. But you just want to think out loud because they want to see what your thought process is and why you make certain choices over other choices, right? Why do I use this data structure instead of this data structure? If you're able to communicate that, that'll show, it's an indication of a competent engineer. And then you don't ask clarifying questions, right? That'll make it easier because it's happened to me where I start working on a problem and it's like, wait, like this has nothing to do with the question. And I would have avoided that if I asked, clarifying questions. So common questions could be like the constraints of the problem or what is like the input, what is the expected output, or like how are you supposed to, manipulate this data into a way that is acceptable for the interviewer. That's just something you want to do. And then I guess like, even though it is a technical interview, and I talked about this before, you do want to show that like you actually care, right? And then you can handle pressure. Because if you just start rambling and rambling and rambling, it'll be like, okay, this guy, he can't work under pressure, right? So you kind of just want to like take a deep breath and just be like, it's like you're on a computer, like they're not there. And so the common mistakes to avoid is if you just start coding immediately, you can run into a lot of issues. Same, being quiet. And then that last one, it doesn't really matter as much, like not testing your code. Because honestly, I've never really had an interview where they like run the code. Like I've never been in an interview where it's like, oh, we finished a problem and then they're going to run it against like some test cases. Honestly, that's never happened to me. They kind of just want to, I don't know, like your mileage may vary. But going back to that point of, jumping to code too quickly, what you want to do, so, they give you the question, they'd be like, hey, let's say, I don't know, I'll just use an example from Bloomberg, right? So they'll be like, hey, given a flight log, right, return the top K, flyers with the most mileage, right? So you don't want to just start coding, oh, hash map, oh, I'll use a heap or whatever, right? You kind of want to just talk to the interviewer, just like have a two-way conversation. Be like, hey, this is how I would do it if I was just doing it with like a pen and paper, like no computer, no nothing, right? So you can start out by being like, oh, I would get I would get a list of all the different names, right? And then I'd go through the list. Every time I see a specific name, I'd add those miles, right? And then if I see the same name, I'd add that onto the previous total, right? So you kind of want to like explain it to them how you would do it if you weren't coding it, right? If you're just doing it by hand, right? Like, you know what I mean? And then once you do that, it'll be easier for you to like lay out a framework of how you're actually going to code it up. Because now you decided, oh, I'm going to get a list of names, and then I'm going to look for the name each time. And so that's where you go back into identifying the pattern, right? Because if you're doing, in this example, what are we repeatedly accessing? That list of names, right? So what would be the ideal data structure for this? Does anyone know? For repeatedly like accessing some information? What's like that data structure that O of one access? What do we think? A what? A hash map? Right. So if we're doing that, we correctly identified that pattern. Oh, we're going to use a hash map, right? So then you code it up using a hash map. So these are like the boring parts, but in reality, it just comes down to just think out loud and then identify that pattern. Like if you can identify the pattern, it'll make things so much easier. Because it's happened to me where like I do everything that I'm saying, but I don't think, like I just don't think. Like I don't think, what should I be doing here? Right? I just like start, like I just go on autopilot and I just start solving it. But I don't think, what is the best, I don't know, data structure for this? Like just take a second and think. Yeah, so shameless plug. Dylan, our president, made Leetcode. So if you don't know what Leetcode is, it's kind of like Leetcode, but made it into a game. Embark on a journey to learn and master the art of programming, explore the world, fight enemies, and uncover the mystery of Algorion. So you guys can check that out. Pretty cool. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So here's some resources. So everybody knows Leetcode. That's kind of like your go-to for technical interviews. But there's stuff like, HackerRank, Code Signal. Those are more for like evaluations. But there's stuff like Leetcode. Leetcode 150 is really good. So they have like the top 150, I guess, technical interview questions. And those are all really good. Like you can do them one at a time. And that'll give you kind of like a fundamental understanding of most software engineering technical interview questions. And then honestly, just like watch like a lot of YouTube videos. Like I know that sounds like a cop out, but it's like there's like really good YouTube videos. And then also like mock interview with people. Like if you have friends that, I don't know, work at a company already, be like, hey, I'm doing this process. Let's do a mock interview. Because like I get like, even though you're just doing an interview like with a friend, like on Discord, for example, like if you like really commit to a time limit and take it seriously, it'll feel like a real interview. Like I've had mock interviews with friends and I'm like, wait, I'm low-key like panicking, like because I didn't get the question right. Like I wasn't understanding the question. I was panicking, even though I was like on a Discord call, right? So mock interviews do help, right? Yeah. And so like practice tools, like I just had to include that, blah, blah, blah. So time management, honestly, like I really don't think time management should be an issue because then again, when you're doing a technical interview, if you're taking too long, your interviewer should appropriately respond. So they'll either guide you or they'll be like, oh, let's move on, right? And yeah. So that's really it. At least for the slides. So I was going to go over like some examples, right? So I was going to talk about I was just going to do like a Leetcode question and then kind of like see if you guys could understand my thought process behind it. Yeah. And then, I could, or, you guys can go through it with me. So Leetcode. Oh, and then books. So this one book, whatchamacallit? Cracking the Coding Interview, it's really good. I'm a fan of like physical books. It's like $20, $25 on Amazon. But if you can get like, huh? Oh, yeah.
This is goated.
If you can get the book, you can get it online. Just like pirate the book. Like I'm gonna be honest with you. Just pirate the book. If you read it front to back and like commit, like it's good. Then again, a lot of these things you kind of just have to commit. Can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna do one Leetcode question a day. I'm guilty of that. But it's like you want to be consistent. And then again, it's that thing of like learning, progress before perfection. So as long as you're consistent and committed, you should be fine. So let's do some questions here. This one's 1094. Carpooling, right? So what should we do here? Should I pretend I'm the interviewer? Does anyone want to do a mock interview, low key? You want a mock interview? All right, come up. Okay, but we have a taker. All right. Let's get a round of applause.
All right.
Yeah. Honestly, like you don't have to code, but I'm just gonna ask you the question, right? So what's your name? Juan, what are you studying?
Computer science.
Computer science. All right. You have any previous internships?
Yes.
Yes. Where at? USA. Okay. I see the shirt. Respect. All right. So, what time is it? Let's say 5:30, right?
Yeah.
So there's a car, we're gonna go over a question, right? Normally in a technical interview, I'd be like, I'd have your resume. I'd be like, hey, like, tell me about your work at USA. Like, what'd you do?
I work with the cloud team and Spring Boot and backend as well.
Okay, yeah. Right. That's pretty cool. What would you say is like the hardest part about your internship?
Figuring out working with an existing code base, probably the hardest part is to actually learn code base that's already written by other developers.
Yeah, yeah, that's, I understand that. And so, I could ask you about like, your projects. I don't have your resume, but it's like, I'd ask you a question about your project, be like, hey, tell me why you did this, or tell me about this project, et cetera, right? But I'd be like, let's move on to the technical portion. So there is a car with capacity empty seats. The vehicle only drives east, i.e., it cannot turn around and drive west. You are given the integer capacity and an array trips, where trips of I is a list. And that list has 3 elements. The number of passengers, where it's from and where it's to indicates that the ith trip has non-passenger passengers, and the locations to pick them up and drop them off are from and to respectively. The locations are given as numbers of kilometers due east of the car's initial location. Return true if it's possible to pick up and drop off all the passengers for all the given trips, or false otherwise, right?
So that was like,
I mean, we could do like,
no,
I mean, honestly, we don't have to like code it out. Like I'll code it out at the end, but it's like, just tell me about your thought process.
So first thing I will do is try to iterate through that trips list,
Mhm.
right? Try to iterate through that, and then since I'm guaranteed to have 3 fields, non-passengers from and to, I will probably use those in probably hash maps.
I mean, like, okay. So what will we do with that?
The only reason I'm saying a hash map is probably because or no, maybe not a hash map, but I need to somehow keep track of the time when I'm picking someone up and then dropping them off, and then comparing it to the next element and making sure that I can pick that one up as well. If those 2 elements are somehow intertwined, I can immediately break out of that and return false. Otherwise, I can keep going. If I can keep going through the rest of that process, then I can return true.
Right. So you're saying that if at any point, we go through each, each trip, and then we pick up people, and then if at some point we pick up too many people, we would just return false, right?
I guess at that point, I also have to keep track of when I'm dropping each of them off.
Right.
And that also will make me rethink the approach, and also add something that also keeps track of how many seats I have available at a given time.
Right.
So if at any point I have all the seats filled up at a given time, and then I try to add one more to that, then I can immediately break out and return false. But I need to also keep track of how many seats I have available at one time.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So what Juan did was very good, right? We haven't written a single line of code, but he's given me his through and through idea of how we code it, right? I mean, like, there are some flaws, right? But you gave me a good idea, and then if you were writing, you'd probably write some comments, be like, hey, this is how I'm going to structure the code, right? And as you start writing, you'll be able to identify, wait, maybe I have a problem here with my solution, right? And then you could change it, right? Because at first you said, oh, we might use a hash map, but then you thought about it and went back, right? And that's totally okay, because you can, just completely change your mind, which I'll do it on the other question, for example. But if you guys want, and then we'd solve it, and then I'd be like, I don't know, pretend I work at Boeing, right? I currently work at Boeing. Probably gonna get laid off, I can't lie. But anyways, so I'd be like, why why are you interested in Boeing? Just give me some bullshit answer, but
All Boeing is such a great company. I want to be part of the mission, and I want to.
right.
Do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, so
Actually, don't do
so
that.
don't do that. That's like
Research.
crazy glazing. You want to have like a more like in-depth answer. Be like, I don't know.
I've been passionate about traveling ever since I was a child.
Exactly, yeah.
Now I want
Exactly. It can be something like that, but like make sure it's genuine and not generic. Like just don't like glaze them for no reason. But you want to have like a generic, like you want to have a genuine interest in why. And it can be whatever you want. It could be like, oh, you guys made this, I don't know, 15 years ago, and I thought that was cool as fuck. So I want to work at XYZ company. But Yeah, and they'll be like, oh, congrats, you got the job. And then, I don't know. Congrats. Anyways, so I'm gonna go ahead and solve the problem, right? So once you see this, you want to kind of like identify, right? So let's go to the umpire. So we'll get to the U. So we want to understand the problem, right? And so thankfully, this is actually a really good example because a lot of the times you can get questions that kind of like give you too much information, and that's a common thing, right? They'll give you too much that you don't need, so you can get confused, right? Because they tell you the vehicle only drives east. It cannot turn around and drive west, right? But I'm going to tell you right now, that has nothing to do with the problem, right? Because if you look at it, it gives you the locations are given as numbers of kilometers due east. So, I mean, like if you think about it, that makes, this makes no sense. But if you're able to understand, we can be like, oh, wait, it's kind of like a number line, right? So you could like, write it down, be like, oh, like, I don't know, there's like a number line here, right? Where this is like 0, 0, and then 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, right? Blah, 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 blah. So you kind of think, oh, put 4 twice, right? You kind of want to change it into a way that's more like ingestible by your mind, right? That makes, anyways, you want to understand the problem, be like, what are we actually trying to solve here, right? Because this is like some car driving, but in reality, you just want to see how many passengers do we have at a specific point? And if we have too many, then we just return false, right? So then, we don't actually need a hash map. We don't need a stack. We just need to iterate over the list, and that's it, right? So I'll go through, that's the U, right? So the understanding is if at any kilometer we have more than the capacity, we just return false, right? So now what we want to do is match it. What are we matching this to, right? And this would just be a sliding window in reality. This would just be a sliding window problem, right? Because we're only looking at a specific set of the data at a given point, right? Which is what are we looking for at any kilometer K, right? We're only looking for the capacity or the current capacity, and then we're comparing that to the general capacity, right? So then there's the P, right? We're gonna plan it out, and then the I is the implementation. So we'll implement that right now. So we want to keep track of this number line, right? So I'm going to call this times. Times. I'm like typing and I can't see. Anyways, so I just initialized this to an empty list, right, in Python, right? So we want to get the times, right? And so at any time, we're either picking up or dropping off passengers, right? So if we look here, we have 2 passengers, right? At kilometer 1, we pick up 2, and at kilometer 5, we drop off 2, right? So if we can just add each kilometer and then represent how many are going to leave or join the car at that point, then we're pretty much done, right? So I'm going to iterate over the list, trips. So in Python, you can do unpacking when you're doing iteration. So instead of doing like for I in range length of trips, right? And then accessing each index by doing like trips of 0, and then trips of 1, blah blah blah. Like you have to type way too much, right? And that doesn't really, it's not really legible. So in Python, you can actually do iteration and unpack a list. So we can do this for time, for passengers. And then you can, these are just variables. You can call them whatever you want. You could do for passengers start end in trips, right? This is going to give me a for loop that'll iterate over all of trips. And at each iteration, passengers start and end is going to represent this number and this number and this number respectively, right? So just makes it easier to read, right? So then we can append times, the append, each time we visit or pick up, let's add a tuple, right? So we'll add the start. So at this kilometer, we're going to pick up passengers, right? I had one too many. And then at the end, we'll remove the passengers, right? So we can just say it's a negative. Times dot append. Oh. And then negative passengers. Right? So then what do we do now? We added all of them to times, so we can do like print times and just run it. Right? So at kilometer 1, we'll pick up 2 people. At kilometer 5, we'll drop off 2 people. At kilometer 3, we'll pick up 3 people. And at kilometer 7, we'll drop off 3 people, right? But if we just iterated over this now and added them up, it wouldn't make sense, right? Because 3 is before 5, but they're not in this list. So what should we do now? We should sort it, right? So in Python, you can just do times.sort. And even though we have a tuple, this is a list of tuples, it'll just automatically compare the first element, which is the time, right? So if we do this, times.sort, and then print times, we can see that now we have 1, 3, 5, 7, right? So then all we have to do is just go for time and times and then add the passengers. If we pass the capacity, return false. Otherwise, we could just return true, right? So we can just do that really quick. So for I guess I don't know what should be the best way. Should we do for time and times and then access each index? Or we could do for underscore comma passengers. And then we'll just say like current passengers equals 0, right? So for blank for underscore comma passengers in times, right? This underscore means we don't really care about what kilometer we're at. This is kind of just like a throwaway, right? So we could have like km here to indicate the kilometer, but we're not really going to use it. So it's good practice to just use an underscore like this. And so we'll just iterate. We'll just do current passengers plus equals passengers, right? And then we could say if current passengers is greater than the capacity, we could just return false. And then at the end of the for loop, if we never return false, we would just return true, right? And if we run it, right, accepted. So this is a fairly, it's a medium, right? But it's not a very crazy solution, right? It's maybe 10 lines, 15 lines. So this was carpooling. And this is a real interview question at Bloomberg, by the way. Like if you're interviewing for Bloomberg, this is a real question. So lock in. And then I have another question that's a little harder. It's a graph question. Who wants to mock interview? Anyone want to mock interview this one? Oh, the harder one. Hey, yeah. I mean, I know you studied this one because it's on the Leetcode tag, but anyone else? You want to interview, Kate? No?
No.
None of you guys want to give it a shot? But I mean, like, you don't have to solve it. Just come. Like, just mock interview. Bro, nobody wants to do it. Shin, you wanna? No, like you don't have to solve it. You don't have to solve it. But like I'll ask you. I just want to see like your thought process. How about that?
You got that.
You wanna try? Okay. Nobody wants to give it a shot. You don't have to solve it. I just want to see how you would approach it. Nobody? No takers? Okay, I understand. If you hate me, like just tell me that, but whatever. All right.
What?
You wanna try? You wanna try this one?
Let's take a gander.
All right.
How long since it's been
What-
since
what-
I've done a via like a
Na-
binary?
name an occupation. Name an occupation.
What?
You like
Oh,
I'm mock interviewing you, bro.
My name is Yusuf. I'm a intern at BNY, I guess, or Lockheed now actually.
This guy's too good. Like multiple jobs. Damn. I wish that was me. Anyways.
Nah, bro.
All right. So I have your resume. Tell me a little bit about your work at BNY Mellon. Right.
Well, I'm actually going through the okay. Alright.
Tell me about your time at BNY Mellon. Like it seems.
So. My time at BNY Mellon, I was a full stack engineering intern.
Okay,
I
okay.
worked on creating a dashboard for the treasury side of the company, building
Okay.
it from the ground up using the Bloomberg terminal.
Okay,
Been
okay.
glazing Bloomberg for the last
Not
30 business minutes.
not too much now. Not too much now.
Yeah. But yeah, applications in production. I
Mhm.
don't know how to do this.
All right.
Let me
Anyways.
read this real quick.
All right. So I'll read you out the question, right?
Yeah.
So you're given a perfect binary tree, right? So it's complete and full. So every node has at least 2 children, right? And every parent has 2 children. So you're given a perfect binary tree where all leaves are on the same level, and every parent has 2 children. The binary tree has a following definition, right? And they give you, the class for a node or whatever. Populate each next pointer to point to its next right node. And if there's no next right node, the next pointer should be set to null. Initially, all next pointers are set to null, right? So then they give you an example, right? So given this binary tree, we see that 1 points to null, right? So 2 points to 3 now, and 3 points to null. So what are you doing at every level now?
You are moving the pointer
Right?
at each level.
Okay.
Point to the next node.
Okay. So let's boil it down a bit. If we only looked at this middle level, what does that look like?
I'm looking at the middle level.
Like, just look at
It
this
looks like a
level,
linked list.
right?
Yeah.
It looks like a linked list. What does that bottom level look like?
A linked list.
Right, it looks like a linked list, right?
Just doing linked list.
So now we just identified, what do? We don't have to do like some complicated ass stuff. We just have to, at every level, make a linked list, right?
Yeah.
So when you see a question like this, that's a graph, you'll think, you have 2 choices. What are those choices? What do we think? What do we think? For like traversing a tree. What? Anyways.
Still talking.
No, you. Oh my God, anyways. All right,
What's this?
you could,
I might be tripping.
you have 2 choices. What are your 2 choices?
What's the difference?
Exactly. So you have 2 choices. BFS, DFS. So if you think about BFS versus DFS, right? DFS is depth first, right?
Yeah.
So we're not making a list like this, right? That order,
BFS.
right? BFS would probably be better because we're going by, think about it this way. We're going from the in to the out. We're going by level, right? Which is what BFS does, right? So BFS uses a queue. If you know BFS, it'll go level by level, right? Right? Like,
You could have
if we
one
did
that keeps
BFS,
track
right?
of this side.
Mhm.
I'll use 2 pointers here
You could,
as well.
right? So we'll go with the BFS example, right?
Yeah.
So if we use BFS in this example, right? When you start BFS on this, right? We'll add this first node to our queue, right? If I write up here, will you guys see? Right? So let's say this is our queue. Big Q, right? So what is the first node that we add in BFS? The root, right? So we add 1, right? And then we have a for loop, right? So let's say while the Q, right? So while Q, right? I'm not really writing any specific language, but while we do this, what's the first thing we do, right? We take the current node, right? Let's say Q dot pop left. Let's say n equals Q dot pop left, right? So n is that 1, right? And we depend all of its children, right? So Q dot I don't know, append n dot left in Q dot append n dot right. Right? So this is basically like your depth first search. This is, your BFS. This is like your BFS, right? So we went through it. n equals q dot top left. So what is n now? 1, right? So we'd append 2 and 3, right? So 2 and 3, right? So then we go to 2. N is now 2. We add 4 and 5. Right? And then we go to 3, right? 3 children are 6 and 7. 6 and 7, right? So if we did like the order, we'd get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? So this is our BFS order if we traversed it, right? So the part where you want to like, this is where I was talking about, if you can understand the fundamental, I guess, algorithm and then modify it to what you need, you can just be like, wait, instead of popping at each level, once we have it, just make a linked list at that point, right? So when we add 1, right, we've already added all the children, say 1, let's just make a linked list with everything in this, right? So you could say, I mean, in reality, 1 is the only thing, so it'd be like 1 points to null, right? Right? And then you would add all the children of 1, right? So you'd have 2 and 3. Oh, 2, that's not even a 3, what? 2 and 3. So then at this point, you take your Q and then you make another linked list. 2, 3, null. Right? And then you add the children of everything in that list, right? So you add 4, 5, 6, and 7. 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you make another linked list. 4 points to 5, points to 6, points to 7, which points to null. Right? So like it's relatively simple once you're able to identify what we have to do at each step, right? Because this is just a BFS, but instead of popping everything, we just make a linked list, right? And so that's like the harder approach. But if you think, they give you a hint, right? Every parent has 2 children. So you're guaranteed for any node that exists, it has a parent, right? So I'm going to code up a solution right here. So we'll call this, I'm going to write a helper function. Let's say def helper, right? In Python, you have to pass in the self, but we're going to pass in the root and we're going to pass in the parent, right? And then we're just going to call it in the main function, right? We have to return the node. So we're going to call this self.helper, helper, oh, I can't even spell helper, right? We're going to pass in the root and we're going to pass in none, right? None is null, Python. And this, we're just going to return the root. So inside of this function, you do want to take care of your edge case, right? So if not root, return, right? And so then at any point, you know, how do I explain this the best? So if the parent exists, right? So if parent, right? You could just say, oh, we're on this node. If I have a parent, I can just point the root to the parent's, right? The parent's right. So you could say root dot next is equal to parent dot I think it's parent dot right. That should be right. Let me double check. I have my notes on my phone. I don't want to misinform you guys. My fault, my fault. It'd be easier if I had a screen on my MacBook, but unfortunately I don't. I'm gonna double check. But anyways, so if parent, right, we can just point to the next. We could say, if parent, and parent dot next, right? If this is the case, so let's say we're at this node. So if we have a parent, this parent would be pointing to 3, right? So we could just say the root next is equal to parent next left. So we could say root dot next is equal to parent dot next dot left, right? And if not root dot left and not root dot right, this means, you know, we don't have anything. So then at this point, we would just return, right? So these are kind of our steps. And then we would just call the function recursively on the left and the right. So self dot helper, root dot left, root, and self dot helper, root dot right. And then, yeah, so this should be correct. It might be wrong. It might not be, root dot right, and then root. It's taking forever. Huh? Time limit exceeded. So I have an infinite loop somewhere. Let's see. Root dot next is equal to parent next left. Parent next. So now we would troubleshoot. What do you think, Yusuf?
Your helper's fine.
Right? So the helper looks fine, but I have an issue somewhere. Can you see where it is?
Why are you passing with?
Why am I passing what? None? Right? Because what's the parent of this? What's the parent of this? Right? What do you think? Oh shit.
If not.
So the issue is, yes, so I'm not using this parent correctly, right? Because I'm checking if the parent, but I could do if parent left
Yeah.
is equal to the parent right, right? So that's where you get into that issue. If you do it wrong the first time, you kind of just like backtrack on your solution and then change it up. So if we have if the parent, we could say parent dot left dot next. This is equal to parent dot right, right? And if parent and parent dot next, we could say parent dot right dot next. Parent dot right dot is equal to parent. Let me look at my notes. Parent, yeah. So parent dot next dot left, right? And that should be right. So if we run it now, right? Accept it, right? So it's kind of like that part where you don't always have to get it right the first time, but as long as you can kind of like identify that and then go back and then, you know, submission, yay, accepted. Yeah. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Any questions? What's up?
If you don't know a lot of
I got a perfect answer for you, buddy.
He's got the answer. He's got the answer.
Leetcode has a wonderful course. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's pretty good. Yes, you will have to spend some money, but think of it like investing in yourself. It is essentially CS1 and CS2 combined. So you'll learn all the algorithms you need, data structures you need in that course at a level to where once you get through that course, you should be able to go to other Leetcode questions and apply the concepts there.
Yeah.
So I bought the course. I'm gonna be real, I was buns at Leetcode. I'm actually a bit better now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm solving shit now, which is great.
Yeah.
But that course is clutch. So I definitely recommend if you have the money, buy that data structures and algorithms course.
Yeah. And I mean, like,
Yeah.
if you don't want to buy it, have you taken CS1 or CS2?
Geeks
Yeah.
for geeks.
So don't even worry. Like, you're going to take CS1 and CS2, and that'll give you like a fundamental understanding. Wait. What'd you say?
Are you suggesting?
Yeah. I mean, like, you're pretty early on. I guess that's a CS major. Because, like, in reality, everything you learn here, you're going to learn in CS1 and CS2. So, yeah.
I mean, honestly, if you feel like you want to get ahead, which is never really a bad
Like
thing.
that's a good
You
thing.
could kind of lock up on that. If you've already taken CS1 and CS2 and you're still bad at solving those questions, lock in.
Which is completely fine. Like that's okay.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I'll be real.
what's up? Yes.
That's another good.
Yes.
Also, like, I say that, I think it's the IO.
Oh shit.
It is .io. Bro just got blocked.
Mm,
Also, I'd say like, when you're first solving Leetcode, if you don't know the solution in like 15 minutes, just look at a video, explain how to do it, and understand how to get to the solution.
yeah.
And then
just
try.
learn certain positions.
Exactly. Yeah. So exactly what he said. It's you're never gonna get it the first time. And again, like I sound like a broken like fuck, I don't know. But it's like you're never gonna learn until you do it. The more you do it, the more you're gonna learn, right? So this is the recommended roadmap of how you should learn stuff, which is pretty good, right? Because they kind of like all build on each other. And yeah, I mean, I don't really use Leetcode.
It's just Leetcode.
Leetcode,
Yeah, it's just a Leetcode 150 in a guided order. So
Leetcode is good. I recommend that you follow this tree in terms of learning if you're gonna do that.
yeah,
If you click on arrays and hashing real quick. So if you click on that, you have a bunch of Leetcode problems that you can do and you can submit the solution. Click on contains
No, no,
duplicates.
Tucson, not Tucson.
Tucson, that's fine.
That's fine.
Contains duplicates pretty cake though. But go to solution.
you can have a solution here.
So you have the video there in case you don't know how to do it. I would watch and the solution in multiple different languages. I recommend Python. I was doing it in Java up until this point, and I picked up Python in like 2 weeks again. So it's pretty doable. So do it in Python. It's easy, removes a lot of the fluff. It legit is English, and that's it. You
Facts.
don't have to do too much with a bunch of different things. This is good. I recommend picking it up if you
It's like look at I mean like sorry Caleb, but like TypeScript and JavaScript is a whole bunch of bullshit.
yeah, no, you just a psychopath.
In Java, I don't know what the Java solution looks like. I mean like bro, like what is this shit? Like can we be real right now?
It's a lot, and then go back to the Python solution.
Like okay, bro,
That's
like
it.
come on,
Like,
come on.
it removes a lot of the bullshit.
Let's be real, let's be real. Like anyways, I do a lot of TypeScript at work, so
Yeah,
kind of roasting myself. But yeah, I mean like I guess if 1 hour of me talking was too much, I guess the main takeaway is don't be discouraged at first. You're not going to get it the first time, but the more you do anything, technical interviews or, you know, just questions, the easier it'll get, right? I remember my first technical interview, I fucking shit the bed. Like I had no fucking idea what to do, right? Like straight up, it was at Chef conference. The guy was like, come interview with me. It was like, anyone heard of Deutsche Bank? It's like a big investment bank,
yeah.
right? I don't know. Anyways, so the guy's like, oh, like you seem really cool. I was literally a freshman. Like I was in intro to C. I was in intro to C, and I had no idea what I was doing. I go to interview with him. He asked me like a Leetcode question, like it was pretty hard. Like even now, it was a pretty hard question, and I genuinely sat there for like an hour, like be like, well, like I don't know how to do this yet. And then the guy was low-key pretty mean, but it's like, I hope you have a better experience than that. But like, you're not gonna get the first time, like I guarantee you, but it'll get better, right? So my first interview was pretty bad. Then it's like, okay, like now I know what I need to know, and hopefully now you know what you need to know.
The more you do them, the more you're gonna get used to it. Your
Exactly.
First interview is never gonna go great. I'm gonna be real. I
Yeah.
kind of had a similar experience, but half the time, depending on the company, they might throw a Leetcode medium at you. You don't even know how to solve it. You're reading it, you don't understand it. Granted, they'll help you get to the solution if you can kind of ask the right questions. But
Yeah.
if you can't do that, you're kind of cooked and you're just gonna stare at the paper for like an hour.
Yeah, and honestly, like I wouldn't feel discouraged. Two things. Even if you have experience doing I guess technical interviews, if you still feel like it's happened to me where I've done thankfully I've been able to do a lot of technical interviews, but even sometimes I still feel like, oh fuck, like what am I supposed to do here? I still panic even though I have experience. So I wouldn't feel bad about that. And then also like don't let the imposter syndrome hit. Like I still feel that way sometimes where it's like I have no idea what I'm doing. But You just have to like take a moment and relax. And yeah, just like be consistent and like you'll figure it out eventually.
Never code right away.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
and
a hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And
if you start it, not good.
if honestly, like if you're able to just like talk the interviewer's ear off, that's better than not having a solution at all. Like I've had interviews where I have no idea what the solution is, but I can like grasp at something. If I can like just talk for the entire hour, it's worked and it will work for you too. Like they asked me some question. It was so bullshit. It was like given a string, like literally a string of letters. And then it's like, okay, anyone who took CS2 knows what Huffman encoding is, right?
No, but you got a Huffman question?
Hold on, it gets better, right? Anyone know what Huffman encoding is? No, my CS2ers, right? You know what Huffman encoding is, right? Anyways, so it's like basically a way to compress a string into binary by representing the frequency of characters within a string, right? So then in the first place, in binary, it's a whole bunch of bullshit because then you have to like build a tree and then traverse the tree and then build a new string based off the frequency, right? And then you have to do a whole bunch of calculations. And so the guy was like, okay, like, what about any number system? I was like, what the fuck? So it's like he would give me a string in like base 3 or base 4. I'd have to build a tree out of that using like the concept of Huffman encoding and then make the tree and then like encode the string. I was like this is some bullshit. Anyways, I had no idea how to solve this. This was literally like a month ago. I had no idea how to solve it. So I literally just yapped for like 40 minutes and I still moved on. So if you can't figure it out, just talk. That's better than being like, that's better than nothing. So just talk, like literally just talk. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else. If you guys have any questions, you guys can ask. What's up?
Leetcode.
Neatcode.io.
Also, one more.
Uh-huh. Yeah, don't worry.
When you clear about like the thing or
Uh-huh.
why was that bad? Is it just 'cause
No, so it's like it's not like a bad thing, but it's kind of like I'm guilty of being like, okay, like I'm gonna lock in this summer, like I'm gonna do one Leetcode question a day, and you just never do it, right? So it's like the fact that you're not consistent. But if you can honestly just like do one question a day and like actually try, you don't have to get it. Like you can just read the solution, but if you give it one good committed try a day, that's a good place to start, right? As long as you're consistent and committed, that's really better than, yeah. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Were you recording?
Yeah. So this is recorded. If you want to look back, you guys can go to our amazing night hack repo, it's github.com/nighthacks. We post to YouTube. It should be in the workshops repository somewhere. 2024 Hello World intro Leetcode. There should be a link somewhere here. You guys can watch the recording. And yeah. Have a good what? Oh, the QR code. Oh,
It's in the chat.
wait.
Yeah, hold on.
Wait. If you guys want the points, like to scan the QR code.
Which laptop is it on?
Can you pull it up on this laptop?
Yeah.
It's in the chat somewhere. Just look up the code is Python. Wait. Yeah, just control F or yeah. Okay, connect to your laptop.
Hey, guys.
Points. Honestly, nobody does a QR code.
No, yeah. Hey, guys, QR code's right here. What's up, guys?
We need to get our prize for the chancla competition.
Yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna next week. There's a QR code for you guys.
So honestly, like I'll look on the board if you want.
What?
What?
What are you?
Start my internet.
Bye, guys.
Just like.
Yo, we gotta go. NVIDIA.
NVIDIA, bro.
I know.
So it's like, excuse me.
What's up, bro?
I'm like thinking of like.
If you ever see, like, given the string, when I rush any consecutive string that has like.
I feel
So, and then you are.
I wanna get into that. I know.
So this was, give me.
I wanna get into that.
I would learn
Yeah.
because of our class structure and the way we go through things here. Pick up Java.
Right, so we look.
No Java well, Python for interviews, Java is just a crutch, right? Python is good for the interviews, and it's something that you can pick up almost immediately. I wouldn't know about that.
So this was just.
Unless you wanna go into desktop development,
My.
or just pick Java, because whatever job you go to, if they require C#, you can.
No, I,
Java, you're gonna
honestly,
be
like,
using most
what
of the
I
time.
did, I used like.
I would worry
Like,
more
I did
about Java than the other.
I did like.
Once you get equals, you can kind of have more of an like wide range of what you want to do. But I think Java, learn it well, and then Python.
Yeah, it's like, I thought about my first thing was doing
That kind of big C.
and then be like, oh, like, I would just do,
Java
L equals counter.
Because it doesn't do a lot of things.
Right, and then give you like a dictionary, it would be like A.
It's harder to lock in on one language.
Right,
Before
but then
that,
the issue is, if I just remove this,
So do,
and then I have like
do,
a.
I
That
would
would have,
learn
I guess,
Java. Not yet.
that would have.
Because it's not you can see. Hard focus.
Exactly, so
On your
I
side.
would have, so I threw that out, and also you need to preserve the order. And so counters in Python are. So what I did like, I did a list and I did
have to pick up the stacks of somebody. They don't care if you know their stack, they just care if you know it's something. You know what I mean? So once you know that's something, you're.
I did.
And I wanted to be.
I didn't know three. I did like
some.
0.
I went in, I came out with SQL,
And I did.
Java, like, you gotta pick it up.
Right, so like.
I had like 2 people from
Should I start?
I had like.
Honestly, for the sake of
Was it like?
what you're doing right now, our focus is C and Python. C for your classes, Python, yeah, hackathon, interviews. So because Python is pretty great. Java, you'll hit when you hit loop and CS2. Once you hit, you go Java, at least enough to understand object oriented. You can learn object oriented.
I'm not learning right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So then I did like
the
language.
Java portion is not as hard.
Yeah.
So at some point, you're gonna know Java, Python, you know, TypeScript, this, and you're just gonna have to pick. One language needs to be your crutch. If you want that to be Python, that's great. Java's good for your
I didn't know
classes.
which one I wanted to say.
Yeah, also, yeah, another thing, we say.
So this-
But do
this
what you know
might-
best.
it'll
If
take
you don't can
this,
solve that problem. with
get
something
each
else,
different one,
use that
and then
language with
make
others
them
and others.
So then the list.
We don't
when
care as
everyone's
long as
like,
you can talk it.
So it'll be like,
So pick the best language that you're most comfortable with, in this case, it's Python.
B, 3.
C wouldn't count.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why you pick it, but don't do it. Yeah, so I would pick up an object oriented.
So they didn't give me
of some form.
right?
Python
so
is
then I can,
really good for
do another-
interviews.
I've seen Python like it's pretty
It'd
good.
be like for I, pattern,
Java, you're gonna hit when you hit loop and CS2.
I'm gonna have to do it.
L.
You're gonna have to do it anyway, so if you really want one language, Python for right now, that way you can do your interviews as you get them.
right? So
You don't have
then
to worry about
I
it.
would do this,
When you're.
and then I would do like,
You can start looking
it
up
would be
like, how do I do this in Python? How do I do this in Python? I legit have been doing this for a week and I'm
count, let's say
fine.
crush,
I've done
right,
Python.
is equal to 3. I would do like, if, count
I kind of know how to work. with
is
Python, but
greater than
I
or
gotta
equal
revise.
to
Yeah,
crush,
that course, that Leetcode course I talked about.
I would check the left, check the right, see if those add up. So I'd be like, if L of I minus one, well, I have to check the
The way
same
you
letter, so
explain the
0,
video, so explain the problem, how it needs to be done, and he'll show you the solution, okay? But the course itself, like the actual Leetcode one I'm talking about, that shows you how to implement the algorithm.
0. So if they're the
How to
same letter,
implement the algorithm
then
with
I would check the
multiple examples and how you would go about using that, right? Once you see the examples and go through it, then you can Leetcode questions after you go through the lesson to kind of reinforce that.
So they don't have any videos.
There's videos to explain the example.
So this is the
But the actual text, it's a text-based course. Leetcode is.
Oh, okay. So
Has
you
hidden
check the
data
signs.
now.
Right, because then that's the
It's like
special.
$100 something dollars.
Really
Yeah, this is.
I would do smart because then
And I still, again, I still recommend it.
let's say
It's
L dot
themselves.
remove.
You
Yeah,
learn a
L
lot.
dot remove.
I'm going through it. I'm doing it for overall. I bought this course 3 months ago. I
Yeah.
couldn't
So
even
this would be
do.
L remove,
I'm still like, you know, not great, but definitely better than before.
I'm like, I'm really.
I think if you're a
And then at the
visual
end, you
learner,
have to
you
do
can try Leetcode. I can't say what it is though, because I don't know what it has, other than just history. But if anything, you got YouTube, look up the algorithm, somebody's gonna have it. I like structured stuff,
Yeah.
which is why I bought the course. If you need something that's structured, this course is
Right.
great.
So then this was like my initial solution. But then
$90,
like, if
you're
you
gonna make
remove
that at
it,
some point, right back.
what is the
Right?
worst?
No matter
case?
how much you
Let's
spend,
say I
as
remove
long
the
as it
first
serves
item,
you,
everything else has to be
Before-
different and item.
off.
So this is actually open square. Because that remove operation is not.
W3 school.
So I
Solid.
follow up with like how to make it at the time, and I was like, oh wait, if we remove something,
YouTube.
since we're iterating
videos,
this
but
way,
W3
we'll
schools
set the
is like
leftmost and negative.
And then you can kind of, once you got the basics now, if you
Yeah,
want
or 0,
solution, you
right?
can-
So then you would iterate, and so you would just add a check. If
So you reconstruct the screen.
yeah, and then at the end I would just do like
return.
return.
Know it for the next time.
And then I would do,
Now that you know, you can apply it to the question if it requires.
empty string dot string. And then in here it would be like the list, and I just do
Really, in my opinion,
C
focusing on
times I
in one other language,
times
there's
I
nothing that's gonna take you away from.
C
So
C
Python
I in
Yeah.
problems every day.
That's good, that's good. Doing this, when you get to CS1, you need to pass that. You wanna pass that. That's insane.
So like, I don't know, the thing is, this is the solution I came up with.
So you can
Yeah, yeah,
ask
yeah.
questions now.
Like, what I was thinking is just, my initial solution was like, all of n squared. I have to end the recording.
It's not far from being,
And how to.
Oh, that. I think that you're just using,
Yeah, so now that I'm doing this -1, I wouldn't remove it anymore.
yeah, you just send it
I would just set it to the next.
Understand it.
So, let me end this with, give me a second.
Not big, so I like it.